So yesterday we did the distributive property, and when I look at, and so we're just expanding on that. We look at the first example. There's like 2 distributive property questions, and there are lots of common mistakes. So again, I sometimes think people think this stuff is really easy, so they don't really practice. They don't really think about it as they're doing it, and then they find out that actually there's all kinds of mistakes that are really easy to make. Remember when we looked at distributive property yesterday, what did we say? The 4 beside the bracket, what does that mean? It means you're multiplying whatever's inside the bracket by 4, right? It means multiply when I have a number beside a bracket. So even if I had like 2 bracket 3, that means 2 times 3, okay? So this means multiply. So I'm multiplying the 4 by the bracket, but I stop when the bracket stops. Some people keep multiplying by everything that comes after it, right? But because I'm adding in this bracket, I got to multiply individually by both those things. Another mistake that probably won't come up too much in this course, but what if I had something like this, 4 times 3xy? People think this is distributive property, and you do 4 times 3 times x and times y. But again, that's not right, because this bracket's different because I'm not adding, basically. So there's lots of different kinds of questions that you can get mixed up. Again, that's why it's so important that we make sure we really, really practice and nail this. Okay, so I'm going to multiply that first bracket, and then at the same time, or after I'm done that, but on the same line, I'm going to multiply the second bracket as well. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. You should hopefully know how to do that. When you're multiplying, we've done a lot of this so far this semester, so if you've been doing it this way all along, it could help here. When you multiply and you have a whole bunch of terms like this, the sign in between the terms is the sign that you get after you've multiplied. So for example, you can watch 4 times x is 4x. 4 times positive 2, positive 4 times positive 2 is, and positive 8, right? So plus 8, because it's positive 8. Everything's positive in this one, so it's straightforward. But here's where people maybe get mixed up even more. 3 times x is just positive 3x, so this is plus 3x, right? Like I'm getting a whole bunch of, a whole bunch of terms that are just going to be added together. In this case, there's no multiplying left. Every one of these terms should be added together. 3 times 7 is 21, positive 21, so plus 21. And now I have 2 x terms and 2 constants. Again, we're looking for like terms here that can be collected and added together. In a simple question like this, you probably don't need this step, but I'll show it to you anyway. You can regroup. And so if you want to do that, especially in the beginning, to help remind you, to help you visualize exactly what it is you're doing, I end up with putting like terms together. And then you actually add them. 4x plus 3x is 7x. And I love how you didn't say 7x squared, right? That we talked about this over the last couple of days. When you're adding, it's not squared. It's just 7x. And then 8 and 21 is 29. And you're done. Do you add those together? No, because they're not like terms. If I couldn't add them together in the last step, I can't add them together now. All these different things. There's so many things, and they're not as intuitive. They're not as obvious. There's so many little details to keep track of that you end up muddling something up, right? Any questions? We all good? All right, let's do one with some negatives in it, just to see how that works out. So the 2 gets multiplied into the first bracket, and that's a negative 5 multiplied into the second bracket. What do I get, Mackenzie, what do I get when I multiply the first bracket?
12x minus 4.
Nice. So 2 times negative 2 is negative 4, so minus 4. Fantastic. And then negative 5 times positive 2. Noah, what's that? Negative 10, so minus 10. Negative 5 times negative x. Positive 5x, so plus 5x. As you're working through this, if you're getting signs wrong, or when you do your learning goal, when we come back after the weekend, if you get your signs wrong, you're making some kind of rule of your own maybe for the signs. Like, I don't know. Like, some people might think, just watch for a minute, that because this is subtracting, that both of these should be subtracting. People make up their own rules. That's not how it works, right? So that's where the practice comes in, is figuring out how it actually does work. Okay, so I got those two terms and I got those two terms. So 12x plus 5x is going to give me 17x. Negative 4 minus 10 is negative 14. Same as always, if you're having a hard time adding the integers together, use your calculator. If you got 6 or negative 6 or positive 14 or anything else there, use your calculator. Try to figure out a way to get those right. Okay, try this one yourself. There's 3 brackets. Same idea though. You do each of those brackets individually, multiply by the number in front. You're going to get a whole bunch of terms. You're going to find the ones that are like each other and add those ones together. How many people got 4x minus 12 for the first bracket? Good. Plus 8x plus 16 for the second bracket. And this is another one that sometimes messes people up when it's just a minus sign. How do you think about that one? Riley? It's a negative 1. So negative 1 times x and negative 1 times positive 4. And it's all about the signs here. Negative 1 times positive x is negative x. Negative 1 times positive 4 is negative 4 minus 4. So take a look. There's your first bracket. There's your second bracket. There's your third bracket. Right? That's where they came from. And then I've got x term, x term, x term. 4 plus 8 minus 1. And constant, constant, constant. 4 plus 8 is 12, minus 1 is 11. Negative 12 plus 16 is positive 4. Minus 4 is 0. Is that right? Works out to 0? Yeah. Works out to 0. So just equals 11x. It's a little strange, but sometimes that works out that way. Okay, try another one. Yeah, 11x. Somebody give me the first line for this one, Ethan. 24x minus 16. Can you keep going? So when I was adding here, very good. Didn't change anything. I still just got x plus 5. Awesome. Okay, and then somebody else give me the next line. Who can do that? Jake, can you do that? Minus 11. Awesome. All right. I'm going to let you do both E and F. E is just a little bit more practice, but same idea. But you've got trinomial, right? So that means 3 terms. So you got to multiply by all 3, but you still stop at the last bracket. And F is a little bit different. It's got a couple little twists to it, so be careful of that one. Okay, so take a look at the first one. I want you to put your pencil down and watch a couple of things to think about. And, you know, if you consciously think about these things as you're working, it helps you not make a mistake. So I multiplied 4 by 3 things, so I still have 3 things. We call those terms, but if you think about each of them as a thing on its own, you're not getting more of them, you still have 3, right? I started with 3, I still have 3. Then I multiplied the 3 by 3 things, and I still have 3 things. These 3 came from this, these 3 came from that, right? Then I regrouped. So I put my x squareds together here, okay? And I put my x's together there, and I put my constants together there. And then I added them together, and then I don't add any further. I've got 3 terms in the beginning, so it kind of makes sense that I have 3 terms in the end. Sometimes you have fewer, but you're not going to have more. But x squareds and x's don't go together. You got to watch your exponents as you're doing it, because if you even forget to write an exponent, you're going to group it with the wrong stuff in the end, right? So keep those things in mind as you're going. Okay, finish F. I know most of you started or almost done. Okay, so why is this one different? Ethan.
Because 6x and x are not multiplied with brackets.
Right? They're like, they're already kind of simplified and they're just terms that are on their own. And that's enough to confuse some people. They think, oh, well, I'm like, this is what we're doing. Right now we're doing distributive property. So I'm supposed to multiply everything by something, but that's not the case, right? Every question is a little bit different. So you still do the same thing. Why are we multiplying? Because 3 beside a bracket means multiply. So I multiply by the bracket, which means, whoa, I stop at the end of the bracket. You don't keep multiplying by the -6. It's outside of brackets. It's already done. And then again, I've got this -1, which we know, or this negative sign, which we know is a -1. Multiply that into the bracket and leave the x alone. So I should get 9x minus 6 and then minus 6x. Just write it. Don't ignore it. It's still there. It's just one of the terms now. Plus 3x minus 4 when I multiply by -1 plus x. So again, when I look for like terms, I've got a bunch of extras. I think it works out to 7x minus 10. Any questions? Everybody okay? One more. What's different about this one? Yeah, it's got x's outside the brackets that you're multiplying by as well. So now we're multiplying x by x. Sometimes you might have to do this, sometimes you might not. Like again, there's if all you're doing is trying to memorize a rule or do every question the exact same way, it's not going to work because every question's a little bit different. What does work is I always take that thing out front and multiply it by everything inside the bracket. If you want to just watch, you can just watch. 3x times x is 3x squared. That's when you change the exponent. X times x is x squared. 3x times 4, positive 12x. Negative 2x times positive 3x. Watch, this is what some people do. They don't know how to link the two brackets together. They know how to multiply one of the brackets. They know how to multiply the other one. So they just turn this into 6x. Maybe even squared. But like there's no sign between them. They just have, now all of a sudden they have two different questions or something. They don't know how to put them back together. So how do you do that, right? You think about the signs. That's negative 2x times positive 3x is negative 6x squared. So it's minus 6x squared, right? And then negative 2x times negative 6 is positive 12x. 3x squared minus 6x squared is negative 3x squared. 12x plus 12x is plus 24x. Any questions?